Before the age of Castoria, there roamed the Tamamos, Scotties, and even Merlin and Waivers. For some of us, however, that age may never come to an end. In this video, we'll be going over the Pre-Castoria farming comps for Space Ishtar's quick, arts, and buster farming setups. Some quick disclosures: we will be assuming Space Ishtar's third skill card buff fails every time, as well as assume minimum RNG NP damage. We'll also be excluding Reyna's as a battery support, as she doesn't get her rank up for the full 50% NP charge until about a month before Castoria's release in NA. As always, I'll be including the link to the document with all the calculations in the description below. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe for more content from me. With that, let's get started with the quick comp. Space Ishtar in a quick comp setup requires a rather expensive build consisting of a maximum broken KSCOPE, double Scotty, and a waiver. However, if you're able to build this comp, then even at NP1, Space Ishtar will be dealing about 131,000 damage per enemy, and at NP2 will be dealing about 175,000 damage per enemy, which is more than enough to reliably clear your average free quest. The pros of using this comp include being able to farm any free quest within a regular number of enemies, such as the level 90 plus Lotto node during the Skyhawk Lotto event next year, as well as outputting consistently high NP damage by the third wave. You can also swap out the MLB KSCOPE for any 50% NP charge CE on Space Ishtar if you use an Arash with an MLB Imaginary Element or non-MLB KSCOPE on Wave 1. However, the cons of this comp include requiring an MLB KSCOPE, your own Scotty, whose banner just passed, and your own waiver. Scotty's defense down is also not guaranteed, as most servant enemies have a passive that can resist the defense down debuff. To add to this, Space Ishtar on the second wave deals about 57,000 minimum damage at NP1 and 65,000 minimum damage at NP2, which would fail against the top Christmas 2021 Lotto node, leaving one of the Wave 2 enemies with up to 27,000 HP remaining. Although, while this specific issue can be mitigated with an NP4 or NP3 level 100 Grailed Space Ishtar, the quick comp still makes her one of the most expensive 3-turn farming compositions for Space Ishtar after Castoria's release. If you don't have your own waiver, a pre-buff Reyna's with her 30% battery can help Space Ishtar quick farm against casters, if that's any consolation. With that, let's move on to the arts comp. For the arts comp, we'll be using a few different team setups when farming against Space Ishtar will require an MLB KSCOPE and either a TAMAMO, PARACELSUS, and PLUGSUITED waiver, or an MLB KSCOPE with TAMAMO, NERO Bride, and a PLUGSUITED waiver. The damage, of course, with the NERO Bride setup is slightly higher than that of the PARACELSUS comp, though the damage from both setups against Berserkers will be more than sufficient to clear most Berserker waves, even with Space Ishtar at NP1. As for all other classes, including Assassins, Space Ishtar at NP1 will be able to cleanly 3-turn clear with a double Tamamo and plug-suited waiver. Although, for Assassins, you may have to use a regular card attack or two before the NP, depending on their HP values. The pros of the arts comp include reliable damage for clearing most free quests across all 3 waves, including the 2021 Christmas Lotto, as well as providing the option to substitute an MLB KSCOPE for any 50% starting NP charge CE on Space Ishtar, provided you bring your own Arash and on Wave 1. As for the downside, the arts comp will require 3 enemies on the first 2 waves to successfully loop. The only exception being enemies with 2 casters, that is, if you're willing to bring an NP5 Space Ishtar and also manage to land a chance-based 20% arts buff on her 3rd skill. Now for the buster comp. Space Ishtar in a buster comp before Queen Skya or Oberon is pretty papega. For the buster comp, you'll be requiring an MLB KSCOPE in addition to an Arash with his own MLB Imaginary Element CE or non-MLB KSCOPE, double Merlin, and a plug-suited Chen Gong. The idea of this comp is not using Chang'Gong as a DPS or even a means of swapping in another unit, but rather for his 50% Buster buff and party-wide 10% NP charge skill. Ironically enough, the Unga Bunga Buster setup for Space Ishtar prior to Castoria, Quainskaya, or Oberon deals noticeably less damage than even her arts or quick comp setups. And even at NP2, Space Ishtar in a Buster comp will struggle to finish off most reclass with her minimum damage on wave 3, hovering around 142,000 damage per enemy. In regards to the pros of the Buster comp, Space Ishtar can farm irregular enemy waves in this setup as refund is not a factor, as well as grant a beginning Buster card bonus to the next 2 face cards if carding becomes necessary to finish off an enemy. As for the downsides to the Buster comp, it does require a total of 5 specific servants to work, leaving you only 1 servant slot to bond farm with. The Buster comp also suffers in the damage department as it requires an NP5 Space Ishtar to even match the damage of an NP2 Space Ishtar within an arts or quick farming composition with neutral damage. However, after Oberon's release around August of 2023, Space Ishtar within a double Oberon Buster comp with the ceremonial New Year Mystic Code becomes one of the most powerful farmers in all of Chaldea in terms of raw damage, with Oberon's 3rd skill doubling all of Space Ishtar's NP damage buffs, jacking her neutral damage at NP1 up to a whopping minimum 240,000 damage per enemy, and taking her neutral NP2 damage up to a minimum 320,000 damage per enemy, no plug-suited support required. If you want more info on how Space Ishtar works within a double Quainskaya composition, or any other team for that matter, feel free to check out my in-depth guide on Space Ishtar linked in the description below. All in all, Space Ishtar, while not impossible to farm with, does take a lot of investment to use for farming prior to the release of Castoria, Quainskaya, or Oberon. If you currently have Scotty and either a Dantes or Lancelot, they both yield a significantly faster farming time than Space Ishtar in the current quick meta. Although, if you're a Rin fan, as we always say, waifu over meta. If you want to support the channel, feel free to subscribe. And if you want to see me live, I also stream over on twitch.tv/PocketChalk. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Laters!